Hello and welcome to the Vintage Show with Vivian. I'm your host, Vivian Elabo Fasoiro. Yes, I'm live here in Hilton Park Lane, where Nigeria's president is visiting to attend the 15th annual Honorary Investor Council meeting, HIIC. We will be interviewing the ministers, we will be interviewing all the potential investors and, of course, Nigerians in diaspora who have come to partake in this particular event. Please do stay tuned. Do not touch that dial. Our own mayor, Kate Anolu,
That's right.
you're welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
What are you expecting to see this evening? And like you know, Mr. President is attending the 15th annual Honorary International Investor Council meeting. What are you expecting this evening?
Well, to start with, I'm very, very happy to be invited, you know, because I know there are loads and loads of Nigerians in here, in this country there. So to be one of the invitees is a pleasure and is an honor. And I do expect a lot of things, you know, because my country, Nigeria, so I love my country, Nigeria, that I expect a lot of progress. You know, and I would expect him to talk on security, which is always what we are worried about. I know the economy is doing very well, but obviously, you know, there has to be security so we can encourage our children to go to Nigeria, especially coming Christmas time. They want to go to Nigeria and they want to know that they are safe. So I really want to know, you know, that there is something being done about that. Okay.
Do you have any concerns, or is there any particular policy you're interested in terms of investment in Nigeria?
It's not investment. The policy I'm interested in things regarding women. Okay. That's really what I'm more interested in. For example, the child marriage, that is really bothering us. And as you know, Nigeria Women in Diaspora Leadership Forum is having a big conference, and I'm taking the opportunity here. I don't know if Jenny has already announced it, but I'm taking the opportunity here to announce it to everybody to come and listen, because these are the things that we are worried about. These are the policy, things that affect women, things that affect children, things that affect girls, especially our future generation.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma, and enjoy the evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Can you tell us quickly what today's event is about and what we can expect?
Today's event is about having it's a meeting of the Presidential Honorary International Investors Council. Okay. We meet twice a year, one in Nigeria, one outside Nigeria, and the whole idea is to look at the country, catch up on where we are in terms of what the country has achieved so far. Okay. But more importantly, how do we attract more investments into the country in critical sectors of the economy? They will advise the president on what we need to do. And the number of topics we're going to cover this in the next 2 days. We'll be covering the issue about making sure we have affordable long-term finance in the economy to drive the recycle of the economy. We'll be looking at how we develop and promote the private equity, venture capital sector of the economy. That's critical for SME development and all that. We'll be looking at the IT sector of the country as a way of driving the economy as well. So there are a number of very, very interesting topics we'll be talking about. The OECD will be making a presentation on their review of the investment climate of the country, which they have done. So we have very, very important topics to go through.
How do you think your office has done so far?
No, you tell me.
In terms of trade and investment.
No, you should be telling me how you think we have done. But I think we've done very well from what I hear. So if you look at the UNTAG report recently, Nigeria for the second year running was the #1 destination for investment in the whole of Africa. Average return on investment is the 4th highest in the world today. We have significant pipeline investment into critical sectors of the economy. So it's going extremely well. But we can do more. Okay. And this whole meeting is about how do we attract even far much more than what we have attracted today.
Are your targets small-scale and medium-scale business enterprises?
It's everything. We have, that MSME is very important to us and important to the country, but we're also looking at big industries as well. That's why we now today have policies on sugar, cane to sugar, on automobile. We'll be looking at textile garments going forward. We'll be looking at palm oil. We'll be looking at the petrochemical sector. So there are so many other very, very important industries we're looking at.
Okay. My name is Godson Nazu from Free Voice Radio here in London, a diaspora radio. I want to find out from the Minister of Information and the Honorable Minister herself, What is the added value of this council to the Nigerian people? Because that is a great demanding question by many Nigerians out there. What is Nigeria going to gain, or what is Nigeria gaining from the outcome of this council in the last 2 or 3 years that has been going on? To the common man on the street of Nigeria, we want to know from you.
The year we went out to sell the first Euro, and I traveled wide in Europe and the United States to sell the Nigerian stuff. And of course, as you know, for the last one, it was heavily oversubscribed, even though it was close to election. That meant the story there is that the investors bought the Nigerian credit stuff. There are very few countries where we buy the credit stories today. Because to start with, you have to look at and understand the macroeconomic environment. When you look at the Nigerian we speak about today, it's a country where you have seen growth for the last 10, 12, average growth is about 8.8% over the last 10 years. It's a country that has delivered average return on investment, according to UNDA, at 35.5%. It's a country that has stable macroeconomic environment. If you look at the exchange rate has been stable. Inflation is down 8%. And when you look at the debt to GDP ratio, we are under 20%, which is one of the lowest. And when you compare that to an average in Europe, it's about 80%. And some other countries more than 100%. When you look at the budget deficit to GDP ratio, it's less than today, it's less than 2%. That is the story, that's what investors want to know, that's what they need to know. And when you compare that to anywhere the rest of the world, we compare favorably. So when you look at two worlds, we say we have two worlds today. A world where you have high growth, high return environment, stable exchange rate, low debt to GDP ratio, low deficits to GDP, to other countries where you have. So I think that is enough cushion for any investor. On your point about the escrow account, it's there, you know, we set up the Sovereign Wealth Fund. We have that as well. The 1 billion is there. They've made their first investment, and they're going to make more investments. If you understand when we're setting up and what I explained to investors then, is that part of that is that part of the 3 blocks is one for infrastructure, one for budget stabilization, the other for future growth. And the escrow account, as it is used for that as well, mainly for stabilization of the budget. So at the end of the day, what you're asking is discipline in the budget. You're asking for how the fiscal consolidation, those numbers tell you that there's discipline in the macroeconomic environment and in the fiscal policy of the country, including monetary. I think that's enough for an investor. The second question is on the validation of the council. To understand that, you need to understand the composition of the council. These are names, people who have great, broad experience from different parts of the world. And what they are advisors to the president. So it's not enough to look at us inward and say we've been great and all that. You need people who have experience about what is happening in other parts of the world to share the experiences with us, but at the same time advising government in different areas. And they have been very productive. One thing we do at the beginning of every council meeting is to go through the council decisions at the last meeting, and more importantly, the level of implementation. What have we done to implement it? So I give you some examples of what came out in the last one and what's going to come out in the next one. So we table our issues. So from the last one, for example, the council said we should have an integrated, you have plans for aviation, for works, for transport and all that. But it was important to have a master integrated infrastructure plan, which we have worked on and have delivered. The issue about corruption, we've always talked about corruption, and corruption is not just a public sector issue, it's a private sector issue as well. This council decided, with the Nigerian investors there, said, look, the private sector need to take the lead. And the last 2 meetings, the subcommittee has been working on a new framework that will make the private sector take leadership role in transparency, that they will comply with rules and regulations, very similar to what Prime Minister David Cameron had here during the last meeting, the 3 T's, which is trade, transparency, and I forgot the third one. The transparency is what part of what the CBNT is going to implement. So they will comply with all the rules and regulations in the country, pay their taxes, whether they are OEMs or OICs or Nigerians and all that, but also that they will play a similar role. They will not take or receive bribes. That will play a major role in transforming the environment itself. And of course, that the government will support that initiative. That's just another example. It was the council also, when they started talking about Lagos State many years ago, the issue with Lagos State and how Lagos State needs to transform, that was what led to one of the master plan for Lagos State. Today, at the last meeting which we had here, we have the opportunity to hear from one of the best brains around, sharing their own experiences with us. One of the council decisions was about the industries which we're looking at, that we have not focused on. The auto industry, for example, sugar cane to sugar. A lot of that was discussed and actually came out from the council meeting. And today, we have a policy on the auto development policy and strategy for the country, which was approved on the 2nd of October. Based on that policy, Nissan on the 9th of October announced that it was going to invest in the auto business in Nigeria with a local bank. And as I speak to you today, we're talking to about maybe 5 or 6 OEMs who plan to come and assemble in the country. If you look at most of them also major investors in the country. So they know the issues they face, and they bring those issues to council to make sure that the government is aware and we're addressing it. And what they can do on their own part, they do it on their own part. So they've been critical. This meeting, for example, also considered the issue of long-term affordable finance for the economy. When you speak when you look at Nigeria today, the opportunities in the country are huge. There are opportunities everywhere to make money. But no matter how well you're equipped, no matter how brilliant you are in terms of ideas, you need money to make it happen. And you need affordable finance. So most of yesterday's afternoon was about where are the sources of finance? What have other countries done? Right? And that is where they come in as well. How do we develop that sector? So we looked at the whole financing value chain, right from this year about the roles of the FI, right from how do we unlock the assets of the pension fund, for example, to private equity, to venture capital, to the role of capital markets. And there were a lot of great ideas drawing from different countries. What Malaysia has done, what Saudi Arabia has done, what South Korea has done, what Brazil has done, what South Africa has done. They are members here. So we could learn from all those experiences, and now we put together an 8-man committee to go and work on it. If we resolve that, every Nigerian will benefit from that, because that's critical to our economy. I've just given you some examples to let you know how important it is. On the ICT question, telecom question, I think first of all we must give credit to the president. This is the first time in the history of Nigeria that you have a ministry responsible for ICT. And he has done that because he realizes the importance, the role ICT plays in economic development in any country. South Korea and other countries moved ahead because of the penetration they had in terms of the ICT, the telecom, and all that sector. And some of you may be aware that when you look at the telecom sector today, it is the fastest growing sector of the economy. And suddenly it's contributing close to about 7% to our GDP from nowhere. Average growth of about 30% in the last 5 years. And will continue to be that. So the huge opportunities, when the Minister of ICT was sharing some ideas with us about some of the apps developed by some Nigerians, and the sort of money you can make, it's become so commercial. And if globally, the fastest growing businesses are those in the ICT sector. So the incubation, the plans she has, so there's a lot happening in the country, and where we want to position ICT in the country is that it should rightly become the hub of ICT in Africa. And everyone contributed their own views to that plan of the ICT minister to help us develop it even further. We use other countries, we use case studies from other countries, That is what we do at these meetings. I hope, I don't know if my colleagues have anything to add to what I've said.
I'll only say one thing, and that is that young people take to ICT probably rather more readily than older people. It's quite clear that the ICT sector will provide employment when it's fully developed, and which will help a lot of younger people in Nigeria. And I think that is a very critical reason for working at the strategic plan on ICT, which the Minister explained very clearly to us this morning. And at our next session, we shall be discussing ICT's role in developing skills, not just academic skills from universities, but also skills for all the people that are needed in a modern economy, from the plumber to the carpenter and so on. There are not enough people who can do at the moment all the jobs that householders or ordinary families need in Nigeria to do them well. People may do them, but not very well. And we need a lot more skills training in Nigeria, which can be stimulated by ICT. We also had a presentation from one of our members from HP talking about how technology has stimulated many industries and improved them in other countries. So we're getting the feed in from other countries which will stimulate ideas in Nigeria.
Just one final point I want to add is that when you talk about ICT, you know that Israel is strong. When you talk about Israel, you talk about ICT, you talk about agriculture. One of the best in Israel that actually has worked in that sector, promoted and taken about 37 Israeli companies to Wall Street for IPO, was one of the guest speakers here yesterday. And he came to share the Israeli experience with us. And we watched a video, what we could do. But the good news is that he's been to Nigeria once, and he said, well, the time he spent in Lagos, told him just huge, immense talent and opportunity in the country. And now he's willing to come to the country to start investing in that sector in the country. And of course, he came with the good wishes of his Minister of Science and Technology, that they want to work with Nigeria to help us develop that sector.
Can I quickly add that there are two other things which the Minister has perhaps forgotten to mention as the benefits driven from the Council. Number one, the CNBC is now in Abuja and Lagos, and actually they are there by virtue of the fact that their chairman is a member of the Council. So that has easily facilitated convincing them to get them to locate in Nigeria, and they are providing a lot of coverage to the country and providing also services to particularly the private sector. The other one is the one-stop investment center which we have in the Investment Promotion Commission. Yes, it's actually a product of this council by one of the members who challenged the president then that for us to be taken seriously, we must be seen to create a means by which starting business in Nigeria can be done with ease. And quickly we're able to have that in place, and it started functioning in March 2006. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the program. We wanted to find out quickly what your take is on this particular council investment that you're having today, investors council meeting you're having today.
Okay, well, this is the one, obviously. What we've seen so far, obviously, is we've started off with a review of implementation, and that's extremely important. It's something that started at the last meeting, where we no longer just meeting to get advice or to offer advice. Okay. We actually get in from different ministers, different the government side, feedback on exactly what the government has done since the last meeting to implement some of the decisions. And I think the moment you continue measuring and reporting, you begin to see progress. The second thing, obviously, is we find that a lot is happening, but a lot is not being properly communicated. And therefore, there is a communication problem, there is a branding problem. It's one thing to talk to investors and to sophisticated groups. It's another thing to speak to the wider audience to change general perception. And there are people who have impressions of Nigeria that they formed 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, who have not visited Nigeria in those years, who have not seen the change that has happened. And there are still clearly a number of things that we need to do to address the perception, and we've got to work on them.
Okay. How do you think we can bridge the gap?
I think part of it is one, engagement at the most senior levels of government with the press and with opinion makers. The second is actually taking concrete action to address some of the things around perception. So if we take concrete action in one or two areas, but also let people understand what has actually changed and why we're doing what we're doing, I think we, especially with the general press, it's one thing to talk to investors, but many people form their opinions based on what they see on TV, what they hear on the radio, what they read in newspapers, and therefore this attitude that, you talk to the investor community and do not address the public perception needs to be worked out. And the good thing is in the last 1 year there has been a lot of space on CNN, on BBC, on NTA, on Nigerian newspapers, and that is on Twitter, on Facebook, and that is the kind of thing that needs to be done and to be done more effectively.
You also talked about implementation. Can you take us through some processes of this implementation you were talking about?
Well, you've just seen, for example, the power privatization, which we were talking about, and it's been done. You're talking about policies that have come out around the automotive industry. Well, they're there, at least they've been produced. You can debate them, you can improve on them, but at least there's a clear direction of policy around an industry that the government wants to build. There's been talk about implementation in agriculture, for example, the elimination of corruption around the subsidy regime and the fertilizer regime, a database for farmers. Okay, the whole work around the cassava flour. So. In each of healthcare, the primary healthcare under SURE-P, progress done under UN, job creation initiatives. So there have been a number of concrete achievements, and nobody is saying that we are at the destination. It's a journey, but the point is, as you make progress, do you communicate that enough so that people see that you are headed in the generally right direction?
Okay. Do you think the CBN will play a major role in ensuring that interest rate is kept low, for small scale and medium scale enterprises?
The only way interest rates in the economy will come down, and I think people need to understand that, is to have a sustained period of low inflation. Now, unfortunately, to get low inflation initially, you've got to keep tight monetary conditions. So rates have to be high until we really overcome the inflation problem. And then we've got a low inflation environment and improved fiscal conditions, then rates begin to come down. And that's the only way you can bring down rates without fueling inflation or exchange rate instability. That's one. Now, however, in the interim, recognizing that interest rates globally are high, we have continued with our interventions. We've got a micro, small, and medium enterprise fund that's supposed to provide low interest funding to micro and small enterprises, 60% for women. We've put in long-term low interest funding to the power sector, to the aviation sector, to the small and medium enterprises, to the agricultural sector and the tax and reversal. So we have had selective interventions on hundreds of billions of naira in the economy at less than 10%, 9%, 7% interest. So that is done, but that is not the sustainable way of guaranteeing low interest funding. We can do that, the government can do that, but if we keep inflation down and continue to improve the fiscal and structural policies, then interest rates will come down ultimately.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are doing this on their own, and we have succeeded largely. Almost all the major leaders of this movement are either under arrest or have been eliminated, which is the truth today. Greater arrests are taking place, greater coordination among security services. So, but it's not a war we can give a target date, because we are dealing with urban guerrilla warfare and people moving to the rural areas. But we are succeeding, even far more than what you have seen in places like Afghanistan and Pakistan. So I assure you that by the grace of God, we will win this war with your cooperation, and Nigeria will be stronger and more united. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I know that the time is fast spent. I just want to say two things. that I suspect will be concerning your mind right now. First of all, is around the ICT infrastructure. Whenever we come to Nigeria, we complain about the speed of our bandwidth and the quality of voice service. I just want to say that we are working on that very hard. We do have targets to improve the quality of service, both for voice and for data. We are working on increasing the connectivity across the country, not only the urban and commercial areas. Work with network operators. We are receiving tremendous investments in that area. The network operators and other infrastructure providers are going to put in about $6 billion into our ICT infrastructure going forward. So we hope that we have a target that by 2017, all our state capitals and all our urban cities will have broadband capacity of 1.5 megabits per second. Not what you're getting in many developed countries, but actually significantly above what we're getting today. The other point I wanted to make is around the local ICT industry. Today we have a very successful industry. It's growing very fast, about 30% year on year. It's been doing so for many years now. What we have seen is that that industry is dominated by the multinational, the global ICT companies, the Microsoft, Oracles, HIICs of this world. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we're trying to do is to ensure that this growth is also enjoyed by local ICT companies. The biggest challenge that we face is skills. There really are not enough ICT skills in the country to support the growth that we're seeing, the growth we're seeing today and the growth we're going to see in the future. And how can the diaspora help? We know that many of you are running ICT companies, many of you have ICT skills, and we're asking you to come to Nigeria to help us develop those skills. We're working with multinationals to train thousands of Nigerians who have already gone through university, to train them in ICT skills where there are tremendous vacancies. When you're talking about unemployment, there are vacancies in the ICT sector we cannot fill because you just don't have the skills. So that's where we think the diaspora can work with us. And also just consulting services, infrastructure companies, building data centers, managing the tremendous, huge networks that we have today. There are tremendous opportunities for skills in the ICT sector. So that's where we would like you to come and work with us. There are a number of things that we're also doing, but this is, I know that we haven't really got that much time, but just to let you know that there is a significant focus on the ICT sector. The ministry was created just 2.5 years ago by President Jonathan, and that is because we saw the importance. It was contributing 5% to GDP in 2011 when the ministry was created. Today it is contributing 8.5%. So you can begin to see the importance of the ICT sector and also the significance we're placing on that sector. Thank you.